address of your emergency?
220 North Fair Street.
You said 229?
220 North Fair Street.
Okay, what's your name?
Ryan McCann.
And what's going on today?
We have a friend who's unconscious. He hasn't moved. He's cold extremity. He's probably in the ambulance.
Okay, how old is he?
He is 19. Yeah, 19 years old.
And was he breathing?
He is breathing.
Year-old Timothy Piazza died after falling down the stairs at an alcohol-fueled pledge event at Penn State University in February, known as the Gauntlet.
They made the pledges run from station to station and drink enormous amounts of alcohol.
On top of the alcohol poisoning, Timothy Piazza suffered from many physical injuries, including a shattered spleen, an abdomen filled with old, dark blood, a respiratory failure due to a collapsed lung, a skull fracture, and multiple injuries that caused doctors to need to remove much of his skull. These injuries could have been easily prevented if someone had just called 911. But there doesn't always have to be alcohol involved for people not to call.
The victim was 19-year-old Chin Michael Ding, a freshman at Baruch College in New York, and a pledge with the Pi Delta Psi fraternity. Ding had traveled to Northeast Pennsylvania with 30 other members and pledges for a weekend event.
It was really like based on how I know about him, he's really strong, and it's just hard to believe it.
According to court documents, Dang, a freshman at Baruch College in New York, was blindfolded and ordered to carry a backpack filled with 30 pounds of sand across a snow-covered field, repeatedly assaulted, and eventually knocked out, sustaining a significant brain injury. Instead of calling 911 right away, authorities say fraternity members called their national president. He is one of the 37 indicted. 5 were charged with third-degree murder.
Michael's death is a deeply painful reminder that no individual should ever be put into a position where his or her personal safety is in jeopardy. Our deepest sympathies go out to Michael's family and his friends, states CNN News. Not one person out of 37 picked up a telephone and called an ambulance, said Monroe County President Judge Patty Worthington, CBS News. Both lives could have been saved if anyone had called the police immediately after the incident instead of allowing the victims to suffer for hours. Then their lives could have been saved. The medical Good Samaritan policy has been adopted by several colleges, which states that whenever someone needs medical attention, to encourage and ensure that students call 911. UNT is a college in our community that includes sororities and fraternities and isn't active in obtaining the medical Good Samaritan policy. We have gained over 100 signatures to take to the Dean of Students to petition to get this policy included at UNT.
Every year since 1970, there has been at least one hazing death. 40% of students say their advisors were present or aware of the hazing. 82% of hazing deaths include alcohol.
Despite hazing being illegal, these statistics show that the adults who are meant to be helping people stay safe are only encouraging or turning a blind eye to what is happening, choosing to allow events to happen that can very quickly turn sour. I asked my cousin's fiance and some of his roommates what their experience with hazing was and how that shaped the way that they viewed the rest of the Greek life on campus.
Oh, the Bandito Bowl. Basically, it's this bowl, okay, first of all, it's something called family night, and we just hang out, and they'll ask us trivia about our org and everything, and then just random stuff, and then there's this thing called the Bandito Bowl, which is a fishbowl, not like a fishbowl you get at a bar, but like a literal fishbowl that's about that big and about that wide, and they just fill it with basically just whatever they can find in the kitchen, alcohol related, and you just drink from it. Usually it's you and one of your pledge brothers, and whoever finishes it and doesn't
pass out or throw up or something.
Throw up. Yeah. Basically it was between me and this other guy, and I won because he was way far gone. But anyway, you get to keep the bowl for until the next semester, and then it's kind of like a sign of pride or whatever for just to say you're not a lightweight or whatever, because we're sensitive about that. But yeah, there was that.
My sister, she's 4 years older than me, so this was back 2012, and it's a story that she heard, so it might be completely fake. I don't know. Apparently, one of the sororities, whenever they would take in a new pledge class, they would have them sit on washing machines.
Yeah, I've heard
and they
that
would
too.
circle whatever jiggled. And if you didn't lose that by the next meeting or rush event or something, you'd be cut. I never experienced it. I don't know if that's true, but that's just a story I heard.
Ooh, yeah, that reminds me. Probably the most questionable form of hazing was SIGs.
Yeah, you have to go around. Basically, you have a SIG. Yeah. They call it a SIG sheet, which is you're getting signatures from active members, and so it's designed for you to go around and get to know everybody in the organization.
Some organizations take advantage of it and have pledges do things in exchange for the SIGs, like shotgun a beer, bring them something, or just something dumb.
We never did that.
Yeah, we never really did. We always talked about that we would, but no one ever did it.
Well, no, he did once, and he got.
They were super strict on it with us. If you did something like that and they found out about it, you'd lose your SIG rights. It's you couldn't get anybody to come make a SIG appointment with you or whatever. So, yeah. But I mean that is definitely something that's happened before, and they'd be in order to get my SIG, you'd have to shotgun a beer and smash it on your head or whatever afterwards.
Yeah.
Did hazing change how you see frats and sororities in Greek life in general?
Not really.
No.
A little bit, because
I was never really sold on it in the first place.
We haven't really been involved in that aspect of Greek life, but I mean it does. You kind of think about it differently, because everybody is kind of it's so cool and whatever else. But whenever you actually get down to it, that seems kind of miserable to be sat down on a washing machine and have your body fat circled and
you still want to join this?
Basically, you need to starve yourself before next week.
Man, what was it? There was I don't know. For me, it's never really been the hazing part that kind of made the difference to me for Greek life. It was more just it almost seems like a class system a little bit, because since frats and sororities are so expensive, they're always using mommy and daddy's money, so it's kind of I don't know, it's just been more of a class thing than
they do act like they're better than everyone else.
Yeah.
Especially certain the rich kid frats, there's Fiji, which is super high dude, only the super rich can get in there.
Yeah.
And they definitely use that as I'm in Fiji, I'm better than you kind of thing.
Even though maybe half of them even pass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're all sports management majors and kinesiology and stuff.
Most of those stories revolved around alcohol, as do the majority of hazing stories. Binge drinking has become one of the major problems of hazing.
In college, there has been an increase in binge drinking. A 2000 study by the Harvard School of Public Health's College Alcohol Study found that 40% of students who were Greek members were frequent binge drinkers, compared to 20% of students who were non-Greek members. In 2008, the National Study of Student Hazing reported that 73% of fraternity or sorority members had experienced hazing. One of the top 5 hazing behaviors was consuming alcohol to the point of sickness or unconsciousness.
Students on the Pitt campus say it's rush week here, the time of year that fraternities and sororities take a look at potential new members. But there won't be any alcohol involved in rush after the university placed all fraternities and sororities on modified interim probation.
I think alcohol is everywhere.
The university took action after an alcohol-related incident happened on January 18th and a student was hospitalized. The university today, in a written statement, said, "We cannot comment on a student's medical condition. We can confirm the student's family was notified. The fraternity and sorority system has been placed on modified social probation, which means that fraternities and sororities may not sponsor, co-sponsor, or participate in any social activities in which alcohol is present."
This inspired our idea to implement a Greek life alcohol policy that would help prevent hospitalizations among the Greek life community.
We also wanted to take the time to understand why Greek life uses hazing so much and why so many people are completely fine with it happening. And what we found was that there are actually many psychological reasons.
Hazing isn't fun, it's not, but that's not what you might hear coming out of the mouths of recent pledges, and that's because they've convinced themselves they've enjoyed it. I once had a friend in a frat, sorry, he would be mad if I said that, I should call it a fraternity, who said he participated in hazing because, quote, shared PTSD makes you closer. What? Well, he's not entirely wrong. Sharing something brings people together, whether it's a meal, a victory, and yes, even being hazed. When you think of hazing, you think of a few things. Drinking games and embarrassing dares, like having intimate relations with a pig, for example. And it turns out it's really effective in making people want to join a group and in making people really like the group they're joining. Social psychology explains that hazing produces cognitive dissonance, which is the mental stress you feel when dealing with two contradictory beliefs. Early social psychology says that pledges try to dispel that dissonance from hazing in two ways. He can convince himself that the initiation was not very unpleasant, or he can exaggerate the positive characteristics of the group and minimize its negative aspects. And the more unpleasant the initiation is, the less they can convince themselves of the former, so they have to exaggerate the latter. One famous 1959 psychology study found that people liked the group they joined more if they did something embarrassing to get in. In this study, researchers had college women try to get into a book club. Some women went through severe initiation, some went through a mild initiation, and some went through none at all. But severe in this case was to read obscene words out loud and also read aloud 2 vivid descriptions of sexual activity from contemporary novels. But hey, it was the 50s, so that was downright scandalous at the time. Anyway, the researchers found that those who went through the severe initiation rated the group as significantly more attractive than those women who went through other initiations. Basically, the harder and more uncomfortable it was to get into the group, the more they claimed they liked it. And the harder the initiation, the greater the dissonance and the more they fight it by liking it. So basically your brain is like, wow, this sucks, why did I do this? But you know what? This club must be really cool to get into. Hazing also forges these strong bonds between pledges by wearing down their sense of individual identity. It can be physical or psychological, because when people in a group are faced with a threat, they rely more on the group and look for group-promoting behavior. So basically, you look around during something kind of traumatic and make sure everyone is in it together. This kind of shared trauma creates an intense bond with other pledges and creates a distance between themselves and non-group members. Basically, it creates a kind of us versus them mentality among pledges. And the experience of hazing itself, or maltreatment as some researchers call it, makes pledges feel dependent on the group, cognitively, socially, and emotionally. Because of what they went through together, they now depend on the group for opinions and even validation.
Now we know why hazing is effective. However, that doesn't mean that it shouldn't change. There have been so many lives affected or even destroyed by hazing, and that needs to change immediately.
While hazing has been made illegal, there are still many things that need to be fixed in order to keep students safe.
We want all colleges to require the Good Samaritan Immunity Act, as well as student bans on alcohol for Greek life services.
If you haven't already, please sign our petition for these things to become implemented.
Hopefully, with these changes, by the time that we get to college, we won't have to risk our lives to make friends.
Remember to always make good decisions in the groups you want to join and stand up for yourself and what you believe in.